owners, you may own shares of your company, but that doesn't mean you think like an owner. You could still think like an operator. And most family business owners think like operators.
It's all about the mindset, owner mindset.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's all about the owner mindset. They have an operator mindset. They love operations. They pursue operational excellence. And let's face it, to be in business today, you better be really good because customers can shop anywhere.
Sejam bem-vindos ao Ypocast Líderes Extraordinários, uma plataforma dedicada à sua jornada de desenvolvimento pessoal e profissional. Conheça as histórias inspiradoras de diversos executivos e empreendedores. Esta iniciativa é uma colaboração do YPO Brasil e da Exame. Assista agora mais um episódio e acesse nosso site.
Prazer estar aqui com vocês hoje em mais um Ypocast, o nosso podcast do YPO Brasil. Hoje a gente tem um convidado internacional, uma grande oportunidade de ter um mestre, um professor honorável e renomado sobre empresas familiares e gestão e sucessão de empresas familiares. É um grande prazer estar aqui com esse professor do MIT, professor de Harvard Business. Eu vou começar a entrevista em inglês e vamos aproveitar bastante essa lição com o nosso professor John Javes. Bom, it's a great pleasure to have you here with us, Professor John Javes. We're going to start our Ypocast we have for our members in Brazil.
Oh.
Welcome. It's a great honor to have you here. I have a great introduction here, and I hope I'll be helping the audience to get the most from you, the most knowledge from you. This episode of Ypocast is our great honor and joy to have you with us, the iconic Professor John Javes, head of family enterprises at MIT Sloan School of Management, a world-renowned authority in the field of family enterprise, family wealth, and family officing. Professor Davis has been a leading figure in his field since the 1970s, shaping our understanding of how family business grow, thrive, and remain successful for generations. His pioneering research, teaching, and advising have been pivotal in developing leaders and guiding family enterprises globally. Notably, he co-created the free cycle model of family business system, a cornerstone framework in family business dynamics. He also developed the next evolution in understanding that goes beyond the free cycle model, which is concept of the family enterprise. He has written many books, his latest being Enduring Advantage, and award-winning educator and trusted advisor. His expertise is sought after worldwide. Professor Davis' impressive academic background includes being trained in management, psychology, and economics, as well a doctorate in business administration for Harvard Business School. Welcome to have you here.
Ventura, thank you very much for that kind introduction. It's a great pleasure to be with you in this podcast. And I know how admired your podcast is, and so it's an honor to be one of your guests.
Great, thank you. So, and we have a plenty of questions here. Of course, I did this privilege to get the most from you, Professor. Sure. And I hope you're going to cover all this, and our audience will be eager to learn from you. And I start with today. Today we have a turbulent environment in business. Yeah, you have teaching at MIT where you focus on the future, specifically how family enterprise can remain successful in turbulence decades ahead. You recently conducted research about how family enterprise can succeed in this volatile and uncertain environment. Which type of turbulence do you expect will impact family enterprise the most in the next decade, either positively or negatively?
You know, this idea of turbulence, it's an interesting term, and you can think of it like turbulence in an airplane. We've all experienced that. And we experience turbulence mostly as bumps when you're going through the air. But if some of the air currents are severe enough, you actually will experience the plane going up and down, right? And that's a pretty close approximation for the turbulence we feel in the world. We feel some of these changes, interruptions, impacts of new things, different things, as bumps, and other things as real changes in our positioning. So where do they come from? I taught at Harvard Business School for 21 years. Loved it. Interesting place. Learned a lot. Great students. And then moved to MIT in 2016. In large part because MIT is studying the future, always has. And it's associated with technology, but it also looks a lot at changes in industry, changes in society, changes in regulation, changes, and what's coming at us. And I wanted to be part of that conversation. And it's helped me a great deal to conceptualize where the turbulence is coming from. And it comes from 4 different external sources and then an important internal source too in family enterprise. One is technology, of course. And right about 2017, I didn't see this, but some of my colleagues at MIT educated me about this. There was a big step up in production technology from computerized technology to technology that's still computerized, but driven more and more by artificial intelligence. So AI steps up a great deal in around that time period. And we move from industrial era 3, driven mostly by computerization and some other factors, to industrial era 4, sometimes called the fourth economy, right? So production technology has changed, is changing. We're all watching AI, for example, and my colleagues at MIT who really get this at a far deeper level than I do tell me that we've seen nothing yet, that we've only still are exploring the early stages of AI. And not just in through sources like ChatGPT, but AI is driving a lot of factors. Robotics is mostly dependent on AI for changes, improvements, facility in doing things. But that's only one of 100 different types of technology, ranging from biotech and then fintech and what's called, regtech, regulatory technology, to material science, to all forms. You can't, every day at MIT, 5 days a week, there's a little newsletter that students and faculty get. And it always mentions some student activity, some club or something. But then it has an interesting story on 1 or 2 new technologies that are coming out of labs and centers at MIT, and it's mind-blowing, the stuff that is happening. And that's just MIT. There are other technological universities and technology centers that are active too, but MIT is kind of ground zero in new technology. And so technological change, that's one. But then you look at the second factor, geopolitics and international relations, and how those factors are shaping trade alliances and trade between countries. And we've seen big shifts more recently between the U.S. and China, which are realigning in some product areas trade, and we expect that that's going to become a bigger factor in the next 5-10 years. So that's changing. Society is changing. We live with this, right? I mean, it's you do, I do, in our own countries, but we understand that society itself is more turbulent today than ever before. There are so many countries that I go to now that are politically polarized, where it is, a little bit dangerous to mention politics in a social gathering because you don't know which side of that line people are going to be on. And demographically, societies are changing a lot. They're becoming much more diverse. And whether it's the society or in the business organization, also more diverse. And even families are becoming much more diverse. So we have all of these societal changes. Economics we're much more integrated. Our economies are much more integrated, and their societies and economies being connected. We're seeing a lot of turbulence in the economic area now. Now, economies have always, done this. We know that, and there are cycles, but there are more of those now than before. That's changing. The big disruptor in the world is our planetary ecosystem. The environmental degradation that we've experienced in the last 50 years has been terrifying. Thousands, tens of thousands of species being eliminated, biodiversity being, it's like species genocide. And the environmental degradation leading to huge issues such as water loss. Now, Brazil's got lots of water, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to become probably the most precious resource on the planet. But this is the big disruptor. So, but you add these four factors together, technology, globalization or deglobalization, societal changes. Let me pause and just say that in my 45 years of studying, teaching, advising families and I've worked in 70 countries, I have never seen the level of country risk globally that I've seen today.
Wow.
And that worries a lot of business families. It should. It should. So you've got, and then all of the environmental challenges that could completely alter the way we live and do business and exist. These four factors are combining in different ways. Like you take COVID, which was the direct result of too closely intermingling habitats, and having viruses jump.
Mm-hmm.
A lot more of that's going to happen. Diseases of various kinds are moving around the world, not only because of the changes in ecosystems, and viruses, I don't know how this works, but they tend to get smarter.
Mm-hmm.
And evade not only treatment but detection for a while. So you've got that, but that is intensified because we travel everywhere. Planes go everywhere. People go everywhere. These things are being transmitted within a matter of days, not weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we don't have we're starting, the medical technology to quickly detect and intercept the growth of diseases that can overtake us. So, you've got all of these factors that combine in various ways to then present us in business and family business with lots of challenges. Look at the workplace challenges that we had during COVID. I mean, definitely that was a disruptive event where you couldn't do it the same way. Mm-hmm. You had to find a new way of being together in a workplace and getting things done. These are going to happen more and more and more. Now, there are opportunities in here too. When the world is changing, when customers are changing what they want, there are new opportunities. And we need to be watching for both the challenges and the opportunities. And one of the things you can see right away is that because the world works in a different way now than it did even 10 years ago. One of the ways it works differently is that you're expected windows of opportunity, I like to say, on big decisions, hiring decisions, investment decisions, organizational change decisions. You don't have as long to study and think about and make changes as you did even a decade ago. Mm-hmm. And so windows of opportunity in terms of taking advantage of an opportunity or addressing a challenge, they're shorter now. So you have to address these important decisions faster in a less predictable environment where you don't know exactly what's coming at you, right? Mm-hmm. I remember, you probably don't, you're a younger guy than me, but I remember when companies not only had 10-year visions, they had 10-year plans. Now, those 10-year plans rarely came true but we had enough confidence about the future that we would plan out 10 years. Mm-hmm. Now, how far out do companies plan? What do you think? What would
3
you say?
months.
Yeah, 3 months. Exactly.
And review it bi-weekly. Weekly.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah.
So, and our planning horizons are much shorter. We can still vision maybe 5 years, 3 years, 5 years. Mm-hmm. That's a big difference, right? Mm-hmm. So the frame around our decision making is different now, and organizations to deal in this new, very different world have to anticipate better, and they have to practice decision making better. You look out there and you say, well, I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but together with the right inputs, we can probably create 2 or 3 scenarios of what could come our way, opportunities and challenges. We can at least go that far, and then based on those scenarios, we could say, well, what do we do in scenario A? What do we do in B or C? You can start to do those practice runs and get ready. Organizations of all kinds, family companies are the ones I work with and care about. We need to do a lot more of that. And we're not doing it enough today. We're not anticipating what's coming at us enough. We're not practicing, developing scenarios and practicing. And, none of our scenarios, again, will come true exactly. But if you've had some practice, you can move faster when the real thing does happen to you. You're probably a little closer to action.
Yeah, this leads us for some questions intriguing that you readiness for change, and how fast the family can move on. I have two questions here that we plan. I put it together, and really astonish you how challenges the world nowadays. But always when I see that, I think the opportunities. Yeah. Always I focus more, and I like to see world is changing fast again. So a lot of opportunities, and it's intriguing. It's really amazing. And these 2 points here that I put in this question, Professor John, it's a family enterprise evolution and readiness for change.
Right.
I think you're going this topic. So how you see the structure of family enterprise evolve over the past decades? So how was this structures, especially in face of rising turbulence, technological advancements and globalization that you already said? And an interesting finding from your recent research is that 84% of families who responded to your global survey said that, given the high level of turbulence expected this decade, moderate to radical change will be needed in their family enterprise in order to remain successful. Yet only 29% feel their family enterprise is ready to make the changes needed.
Yeah.
That is a very low percentage of change-ready family enterprise. Why are family enterprise not ready to change? What is the challenge here?
I start with the idea that family business, is a combination. It's any business where the family is in control of the organization through ownership, but also typically engaged in in key roles in that business organization. So the family naturally imports or exports into the business some of its natural ways of doing and thinking, okay? And family companies, more than other kinds of organizations, and other kinds of organizations can have a type of this, but family companies tend to be organizations of attachment, of strong attachment. Attachment to people, attachment to ways of doing things, attachment to the products we make. These are more emotionally driven organizations. And they tend to be ones where things get very personalized, where trust is very important as opposed to just process. We get things done because we trust each other, because, okay, you go do that. Mm-hmm. Now, these are kind of maybe exaggerated statements, but they're pretty close. So in organizations like this, strong attachments, personalized relationships, you have, they tend to move slower around big changes. Now, we know from research that family businesses are far more innovative than non-family businesses on average. Why? Well, because families and the people in their organizations, they love to tinker. They love to improve. They love to make it better. Products, processes, etc. That type of innovation in family companies is better. But it's more of an operational kind of innovation. Families and family companies tend not to like big changes, because big changes in what we do or where we do it, etc., can disrupt the hierarchy, the social relationships. So I think, and they like more peaceful change. Good luck in today's world getting to peaceful change. Family companies, we know also, on average, perform better profitability, growth, returns of various kinds. So I used to say, Ventura, family companies are slower, but they're better. They make changes, the bigger changes, slower. And there's research that backs this up. But they perform better. I don't say that anymore. Because I don't know if you can be slower and better. And why is that? Well, because so many of the changes that and factors that we're forced to deal with today aren't just operational changes, but they go up to the owner level. They're like, your industry is consolidating. What do? Technology is changing. Do we adopt it? Or is this the time for us to sell and move on? Customer power, customer interests are changing, affecting our product line. Well, yeah, we can innovate here and there maybe, but even those kinds of changes go up to the level of owners. Our next generation doesn't seem interested in what we're doing. We better pay attention to that. That's not an operational issue. That's an owner level issue, where we need to think like owners, because this could imply a big change, and big changes have to have owner approval at least. You may have good management recommendations, board recommendations to the owners, but the owners are accountable for making those kinds of changes. Do we go into the next territory, or do we diversify our business? Do we sell that and buy that? Do we change our management? Do we need to update our culture? These go up to the owners, okay? And here's one of the most important, I think, pivotal things that I've understood now. And my move to MIT helped me on this. Owners, you may own shares of your company, but that doesn't mean you think like an owner. You could still think like an operator. And most family business owners think like operators.
It's all about the mindset, owner mindset.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's all about the owner mindset. They have an operator mindset. They love operations. They pursue operational excellence. And let's face it, to be in business today, you better be really good, because customers can shop anywhere. Now, you can sell anywhere. That's good. And companies are getting, successful companies are getting much bigger because of that. But you've got a lot more, customers have a lot more options now, and they're less loyal than they were 10, 20 years ago. So you better be operationally good, maybe excellent, if you want to survive. But the owners can't devote all of their time to thinking about that. They have to devote a significant amount of time thinking about what's next, what's coming at you. How is the world changing, and how is that going to impact us, and what changes do we need to make, not just in our organization, but maybe in our portfolio. Yeah, we've got a good operating business, maybe two, but do they give us enough growth opportunity, or are we taking significant risk just focusing on that? Because those industries are changing, they're moving. So what are we as owners going to do? Are we going to diversify? Is this the right time to get out of one of our businesses that we've done well in? We're good at it, but it may not be a good bet for the future. So we need to think like owners. And so when I see a statistic like the one you quoted, yeah, I mean, you'd have to be completely asleep today not to see that the world is changing a lot and that we're going to have to make some changes. And 84% of the people we surveyed globally, senior generation and junior generation, said pretty much the same thing. Yeah, we get it. But then are they ready? No, not enough. Less than a third. That's dangerous. Why? Because they're not thinking like owners. They're not looking out there. They don't have that discipline yet. Because we've done pretty well so far looking down, being operational, really focusing on operations. We've done pretty well at this. Well, good. Yeah, great. But can you survive another 30 years just looking down? No. So this is my campaign now.
Yeah, that's great. It's amazing. Looking forward in the future. It's taken me on one step back, Professor John. We are talking about the future and the challenges ahead, but I would like to get some time on the back, at the moment to go back to when you were a doctoral student at Harvard, yeah? Studying family companies in late 70s, yeah? Let's rewind the time here a little, yeah?
It's more than a little, but yeah, let's go back there.
Still a lot of time ahead yet. You made a considerable leap forward in understanding family business in that time by developing the free cycle model, yeah? A Venn diagram that describes a family business, a system. Then about 20 years later, you involve your thinking about this organization by creating the family enterprise framework. Yeah, tell us why shifting your perspective from looking at the family business to looking family enterprise, and why so groundbreaking, why families should do this. Yeah, tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, thank you. I had a wonderful mentor. When I was in graduate school, a professor named Renato Tajuri. And he was an esteemed psychologist who taught at Harvard Business School. And he influenced my thinking quite a bit. So when we were starting out, 1978, when we were starting out, to understand family business, it was the family business that we wanted to understand. We soon understood that we needed to step back a bit and not just focus on the business, but also on the family that was in the business and that owned the business. So by doing this, by stepping back, by understanding the broader context, you understood that if we want to really understand this business organization, you had to understand the system. You had to understand there's a business group, employees basically. There's a family group. They're combined. They're overlapping because some of the family are in the business. But there's also an ownership group. And in family companies, it's the control almost always is solidly in the family. But there could be other outside owners as well, right? And in a publicly traded family business, there could be thousands of other owners. So there are these three groups that interact, that produce the dynamics, the behaviors, the outcomes. It's not just the business organization. Okay, so but you had to do this. You had to step back, understand the broader context. That goes a long way in terms of understanding the viability, the strength, the weakness of a family business system. But then I took another step back, and you could tell that if you ask a family, what are your interests? What are the activities and what are the things you pay attention to? Family company, our business organization, we get it. Good. That's your biggest asset. That deserves a lot of attention. But that's not the only thing we have. We also have some non-core business activities, very often like a real estate portfolio over here. We own some apartments, or we own some land, and we think we're pretty good at that too. We don't consider that our core business, but we've got that too. Okay. We also have financial assets. We've been successful in our business, and it's spun out cash, and we've been finding ways to invest that. Good for you. Because with enough financial assets outside your core business, that can make the family a little bit more confident about its future and allow it to aggressively reinvest in the company more. So that's great. So the portfolio of a family, the assets, a successful family, they typically extend beyond just the operating businesses that they own. But then you've got family assets. You've got homes and cars and boats and vacation houses and right? Those can be valuable, but they're generally held because they're of sentimental interest to the family. But then families also very often are engaged with their communities, do philanthropy more and more. Families are interested in the social impact, not only of their regular philanthropic activities, but also their company. Are we having a positive social impact in our company and in our investment practices? Things like that. And we're not done. Then there's the family. Do we have a family that we're interested in? And we not only like to build unity in our family, so we're all trying to march in the same direction, but we also like a nice family life. We like to get together. We like that. And then talent in our family. You know, parents start when their kids are really little with educating them. And they put them in schools and they give them educational opportunities. And it goes all the way through university. Then we realize we're not done. That there's more education that's needed. YPO is founded on that great principle, right? So that's the family enterprise. It's all of the assets and activities that a family has. And I had to step back to appreciate that and to know that if you want to build a great family business, it helps to have these other assets and activities to encourage family engagement, to build family pride, to build family unity, and to provide the financial base to be successful. And so whenever you deal with any kind of problem within a business, in a family, in a friendship, whatever, to understand that problem, you need to step back and appreciate the context around that problem. So when you look at the family enterprise, are we done? No. Because you have to understand the environment around the enterprise. Is that changing? Is that offering you growth opportunities? Is your country supporting your family and your business? Things like that. So what is the context? And even beyond our immediate context, there's the global context. So my thinking has gone from this business to the system, to the family enterprise, to the context around the family enterprise, to the global context. And you get there, it's not rocket science. But if you're interested in really understanding what's important for success, you've got to do this. You've got to step back and appreciate more. Now, I've had 45 years. I've had a lot of time to think about going from here to here. And it's been just intellectually and professionally, but also in terms of the people I've gotten to meet and the families I've gotten to work with and the interesting challenges that I've gotten to, sit with people and figure them out. It's been a pleasure. It's been a joy, really. And I'm not done. There are more interesting questions
For sure.
that I'm working on today than ever before.
For sure. To remind me, Arthur Brooks, he's written successful books about nowadays, and he said the fluid knowledge, you now have most to give you the best in the years ahead, Professor, for sure.
I hope so.
It's the best time, the best experience for...
What's also really helping me? I noticed a change when I was about your age. That up until about 50, I was more and more confident that I understood things well enough to give people good advice. But around 50, but then 60, and now 70, I don't waste time. I get to the point,
Right.
and I have very clear conversations with the people I'm trying to help.
Good.
I'm not as cautious anymore. And I find that my effectiveness, because people trust that, after 40 years, you better know what you're talking about, or you should do something else, right?
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
And I and my company, Cambridge, at this point, we've assisted through advice and over time more than 800 families.
Wow.
Now that's a pretty good data set.
Yeah. For sure.
So I have reason to be pretty confident, and I tend, as a person, not to make a point or say something until I've really thought about it for a while. I don't shoot from the hip, we say. I don't do that. I don't feel confident doing that. But once I'm confident, and now at my age and my level of experience, it's a joy, to say, well, this is how I see it. I care about you. I don't want to hurt your feelings with this, but this is the way I see it. Do you disagree? And I can have these kind of real conversations quickly, or
Great.
more quickly than I could before.
Yeah, this is the years of experience and life now. So, moving on here, a lot of questions, Professor John. Some topics that is emerge here is innovation and tradition, and succession and next generation engagement. So, thriving the years now, this innovation versus tradition. How can family business balance the need for innovation? As you said before, we are in the most thriving times in the world, in a rapidly changing business environment, which desires to maintain tradition and core values. And I would like to link this with the owner mindset as well. So tradition, core values, mindset. And another, yeah, stop in this here. We're going to stop here. Yeah.
Ventura, this is a great one.
Yeah.
This is a great one. Around products and processes, stuff that we are doing today, traditional stuff, we're good at innovating that stuff. Families are really good. Like I said before, the difficulty families have is breaking some of the attachments to the old stuff and moving on to the new stuff. That's where it's harder. It's harder. We've seen, families that needed to divest a business take 10 years to do it when it should have taken 2. Right? Examples, We've seen many families hang on to older managers, family and non-family, of different parts of their company when everybody knows we need to make a change. And it'll take years when that should take months. The attachments within these companies, within these families and companies, are very strong. So, yeah, they're traditional in that sense. Okay? Now, families can misunderstand what they should be attached to. You see somebody at work, it's a personal attachment. These are personalized. You touch the products that you make. That's a personalized attachment. And that's not what we should be attached to in a more Buddhist way. Okay? We should be attached to the value, the tradition of creating value and of making the world a better place because of the value that we're creating. That's the attachment. And yeah, I'm going to be respectful to you, my brother, and we care about each other. I'm going to honor that. But everything else in our business, everything else in our organization needs to change. And we're going to be respectful to individuals as we change. If we need to fire a bunch of people, we're going to try to do outplacement for them. We care about them, but we need to change. We can honor some of the old products we've had. We'll put them in a museum, or we'll put them in our lobby to remind people of the great things we've produced. But we're moving on because we need to create value. That is the highest order for a family or an individual of purpose. And so we misunderstand what our attachments, what our traditions, what our passions are about. And as part of the campaign to think like an owner, if you think like an owner, you think about value creation. And you understand the world is changing those ways that we had of creating value, those were good for a while. They're not the ones we need for our future. Some of them might be. I mean, some of what we've been doing might extend, might have growth opportunities, might have value creation opportunities. Great, great. But let's move in the direction of value creation, always. And to do that, it takes a special perspective and a more detached, emotionally detached understanding of what you're doing, right? And emotions are great, caring is great, passions are great, but you also need to know when to respectfully detach and attach to new things. Our kids grow up, and at a certain point, you need to detach a bit from them because they have other lives now, and relate to them in a new way and attach to new things. If you don't do that, you're going to hold them back and hold yourself back, right? This
Perfect.
works in all parts of life, I think.
Perfect. That's right. Yeah. So that is lead us for the next question here, exactly for succession and next generation. So it's the touch. It's amazing. Yeah. In a Buddhist way. Yeah. I like it. I love it. How is preparing the next generation different today than it was generation ago? How should current leaders engage and prepare the next generation today? So,
Yeah.
this is
You know, this really makes me smile because, oh my goodness, the millennial or Generation Y and Gen Zs, they've been so researched. There's just a mountain of research. The millennials were far more researched than the Xers or I think you're an Xer, and the my generation, the boomers, right? We each got a little bit of research on us, but then the millennials came along and boom, there was a huge amount of research. And I was part of that. I tracked it. I did some of it, millennials and business families. So, and it's true that they are different in some ways. Now, it's not a monolithic generation. They're different kinds of millennials, right? And some millennials love their family's business and want even traditional careers, so there are those too. But again, we're looking broadly within a generation, and you see that things have changed. Families, this generation is different than the preceding generations in some ways, and the Z, Generation Z, young people as well. They differ from the millennials. They differ from the Xers and the boomers. Yeah. No, this has always been true. And younger people have always defined themselves to some extent in contrast to their parents and their parents' generation, and vice versa. And senior generations have looked into the next generation and said, wow, the way they think, so there's been these judgments on both sides. It's natural. It's like, this is civilization. You can go back in history, and as I have, and read and smile at the parents talking about their next generation in the same way. 200 years ago, 1,000 years ago. Okay, so
probably we did that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the way it works. And the purpose, one of the social purposes of next generations is to update and change the way their parents did things. It's important. because every generation is adapting to their experience. So you start there, and it's good to get both generations that take these tensions very seriously. It's good to get them to smile and to say, you know, this was true in 1800 too. You know that? Okay, it's no big deal. I thought we were the first. No, you're not the first. So it's good to have that perspective in this conversation. And then so what is it that the generation Y and Z, what is it that they want? And some of it is different than what we want. They want different kinds of workplaces. They want different kinds of careers. And within business families, a growing number of next generation members don't really find the businesses that we're in today as attractive for their careers or how they want to spend their time. They'd much rather, many of them, be on the investment side of things, or be doing a startup, or trying something new. Okay, so the next generations have some different attitudes, and instead of fighting it, we need to incorporate it. And we need to, in two different things, we need to figure out how to use their particular talents and orientations and ideas to grow value for our family. And so some of them may be more useful as entrepreneurs, or some of them, we need to give them the right training, and then maybe they can help us with our investments outside of our operating companies. And others of them might be useful in our operating company, but in a more strategic role and a less operational role. Because we can delegate, push down, or delegate to very experienced non-family a lot of operations. And we need to know how to use our family always in the most strategic roles where they can have the biggest impact. And they can bring their ownership power into those roles and help the organization make good and quick decisions. Okay? So we need to use these folks, these talented, interesting, younger people in the right way. And we also need to engage them with what we're trying to do as a family. And again, families need to do this and understand that we're not just trying to engage them with our current operating businesses, but with our purpose. And at the core of our purpose is to generate value, not just financial value, social impact value, reputational value, relational value, building unity, helping the world in a bunch of ways, right? This is what we're about. Okay, help us do this. Now, to get them engaged, we have to, I was up in Recife a few days ago.
Okay.
And this topic came up of how do you integrate the next generation with the senior generation. And the metaphor, when you go to a family dinner, there's an adult table and then there's a kids table, okay? And sometimes these 40 and even 50-somethings still feel that they're at the kids table. And the parents, they're going to make the big decisions. think they'll have the important conversations, and we can talk about our tennis games or whatever, right? No. 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 You have to bring these, and these younger people know some things, have some talents, are sensitive to some things that the senior people aren't necessarily that good at. This is the first time in history, I think, where the two generations each have important and complementary things, ideas, talents, experiences even, to bring to the table, to think about what we do next. Earlier in history, when operating businesses lasted a lot longer, and the idea was the senior generation had all of this experience getting up to the top, and they wanted the next generation to do the same thing. And the idea was, for me, they know a lot, I don't know as much. My job is to spend the next 20 years or so climbing up here, gaining operational experience, so I can be as good as them. Right?
Yeah, and this, you're talking that is, I remind here the CEO of Michael Page in Brazil. Another day, we were having a conversation about this January gap and January family. And he was telling me that this time, I don't know if you agree with this view, but this time it's the unique time in the human being that the younger generation has faster and more knowledge or access for the knowledge than the older one. So usually in the history, the father teach the kids to hunt and to be sociable. No? But nowadays, how to hunt is really thriving in the new world, and to be social is a totally different way to be social, and the knowledge you get in an AI. So it's just this upside down. No? This is the moment that we're living now. And I see that another day I was reading a book about focus, how the media changed our relationship. This is an American author. It's an amazing book. And he's telling us about how the people is the relationship, the Instagram relationship, and how this modify. And another day with another young CEO with 25 years old, he said, boys and girls nowadays, they don't have a relation. They have just a goal, one goal of a date, one night, and that's it. So we are not creating relationship. And I'm thinking, how is changing fast, Professor John? And what are your thoughts about that? For this generation of family, it's really challenging to lead with this,
Yeah. And I'm smiling internally with this great observation and question. It is true that these two generations are complementary, and the next the younger people can add a lot to the conversation that we need to have about the future, and they need to be at the adult table. Okay, but there are some things in that younger generation that worry me, and it's not because they're different. Hooray that they're bringing some new stuff to the conversation. Mm-hmm. It's that they have some deficits that worry me. For example, relationships. They've become disconnected from direct contact with others. And they start, my fear is, and these young people have a big heart and want to help the world. Mm-hmm. Great. But they don't know as much about how to interact personally with somebody else and how to build a relationship.
They are more in the screen time,
They're more in the screen time. And this is I think they become even more transactional in their interactions with people, because it's on the screen, you know, or it's a date, you know. And I want them to put those devices down more and sit together and talk and feel the emotions of other people and develop the empathy and the consideration. and also, you see this in social media, right? It's easier to say something to them in a harsh, belligerent way when you're typing it on your device. It's harder, it's more challenging to say things like that when you're sitting next to somebody and you get to know them and you get to understand that, well, we share some things, okay? So I'm with you. I'm concerned about their emotional and interpersonal strengths. I'm concerned about that. Here's something else I'm concerned about. Starting at about in the 1970s, a new idea of parenting started to take hold. This is 50 years ago, okay? And it wasn't the way I was parented, but it started to take place where parents, well, a little bit. I mean, parents have always wanted their kids to be happy, to be productive, and they understand that you have 2 or 3 or 4 kids, you know they're different. One of the first things you see as parents, these are different people. You know, they share some common values and they look a little bit alike, but no, they're different. And they have different talents, they have some different aspirations, some different personality characteristics, etc. You get it. And we've always wanted our kids to be happy and doing the things they wanted to do. Okay. But around in the 1970s, and it's just gone on, parents started to believe that maybe their only purpose was to raise their kids to be the best, always say now, the best version of themselves, right? And nothing wrong with that. But what got dropped was the reminder to kids, but don't forget your responsibility to your family. Now, those two things can be said together. You know, if you want to be an architect, I'll help you be a good one. You know, great. You want to be a business manager, or you want to be an artist, I don't want you to become a professor because, you know, that should be off limits, right?
Yeah, no,
but almost anything else is, yeah. But parents could have continued to say, and should have continued to say, but don't forget your responsibility to your family. And now, because what happens is that you go off and you create your own life, and you haven't been, it's not that you don't care about your family, you do, but you haven't been reminded that this group helped you get where you are today. This group is doing useful, interesting things, and it doesn't stay alive unless family get involved. Now, we can sell our businesses and take the money off the table and go off and do that's okay. But if we want to do some interesting things as a family, we have to power that with family talent and family values and family passions. Okay? So parents need to say to their kids, but don't forget your responsibility to your family. You don't have to work in the business. That's okay. If that's not in you, that's okay. But now, if it is in you, let's get started.
Of course.
But you're all going to be owners, and we need to develop you as responsible owners. Now, if you don't want to be an owner, put your hand up.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to figure out a way to give you something else and give you your freedom.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. But we're doing philanthropy. We need one or two of you who really understands philanthropy, because the family does that. We also do some financial investing. It'd be great if one or two of you really got very knowledgeable about that, so we know that we're doing it well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can contribute back to your family in a lot of ways. Some of you just by being really good family members, showing up, helping your cousins when they need some help. But don't forget your responsibility to your family. We stop saying that. So in this next generations, we've produced a bunch of individuals who really think about their own interests and their own direction and their own passions. That's great. But these individuals should also feel a responsibility to support the group that helped them have a successful life. That also scares the hell out of me, because it's not just in families, it's in the world, it's in society now.
Yeah.
We've become so individualistic that we don't think about our responsibility to the group, to our community, to our country.
Mm-hmm.
We're not raised like that. Young people don't vote, at least in the U.S., as much.
What do you think it's happened is more for the social media, the tech, because as you said, you have been more 70 countries, different countries, and I have the opportunity to travel a lot in Asia when I was young with backpackers, and through Europe and other countries as well. But you see this all over the world. You go to Indonesia, you go to New Guinea, Solomon Island, China, South Asia, all Europe, of course. So Africa, so everywhere almost is happening the same. And this book about focus, they said, put a lot of weight in the social media, the TikTok, the Instagram. Do you think this deep, this is really correlated with this challenge that you said?
Very.
Yeah.
Very. Social media was thrown. The fire was already burning. The individualism was already created pre-social media.
Mm-hmm.
Because of parenting and other influences that say, be an individual,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But social media was like throwing gasoline on a fire.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just accelerated it and made it much harder to reconnect people.
Mm-hmm.
Here's something that I think is so interesting. We're not making deals in business based on social media connections.
Mm-hmm.
You still see people realizing, I gotta go over and meet and sit with Ventura.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to do a deal with him, or we're going to build something together, I want to get to know him.
Mm-hmm.
And let's start with lunch.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that is still true. But and at some point, I'm hoping that these younger people get it. That they can't just do this. That they have to be talking, connecting, getting to know, and also getting to share some experiences with this person. Because if we're going to do business together, it's going to be like this.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's like this, it's fun and like this, we really have to pull together, right? They need that. they need to know that the world does this. That's the life,
No.
right? But you need to have bonds that are not transactional to survive that,
Of course.
right?
Yeah.
And I worry about that.
And that I'm thinking here, Professor John, and for the family business and the owner mindset or the leader of the family, how are your tips how to educate the young generation? Because normally in the past, come to work with your daddy, join the family, or go to that university or that one. But is there any key roles or key tips for how to educate, how to integrate the young generation? Some of families here, they have a really strong procedures and checklist, let's say. You work outside, you get the MBA, you do that, then you start as trainee from the...
Yeah.
How you see this one?
Well, we can learn a lot from families that have done it and done it well, okay? When I was in my 20s still, 30s, I was in my early 30s. And I was invited to start a program for families that own businesses at a business school in Switzerland called IMD. Great school. And I was with a couple of other American guys because we were like, there weren't many of us at that point doing this work. So we got a lot of invitations to go here and there and speak and do things like that. So it was wonderful and a great education. And so I was in the classroom and learning from, trying to teach, but also learning from families that were in generation 4 and 6 and later, you know, European families that had, and for an American guy, this was like, wow. And so I spent considerable amount of time over coffee during the day or over wine at night, sitting with these participants and asking them, how did you get to generation 4? You know, what have you learned in this journey? Or generation 6, whatever. And the stories were wonderful, and they always mentioned several factors. But one of the consistent things that they would say is that if you want to survive in business as a family, you have to get your family organized. And in the beginning, I would say, well, you mean the owners? And they would say, yeah, of course the owners. But no, beyond the owners. We're talking about the spouses, the kids. You need to get that family organized. And I'd say, well, what does that mean? And they educated me about what that means, and it became the topic of what we now call family governance. The family needs to get together, and if it's a big enough family, you need a smaller group to have some important discussions and to organize meetings and to make sure the family's informed and to spot problems in the family and to have a leadership group that deals with them, right? You need to get your family organized, disciplined, and connected, right? And families over time, and this has always been true, tend to disconnect over generations and create new families, basically. So it was, duh. I mean, of course, yeah, okay, but they were very helpful. Now, move to present day. You can connect your family, you can organize your family in person and virtually today, and you need to do a combination. And we can, so that some of the practices of education, of information, of mechanisms are changing somewhat. The tools are changing. So we've got to adapt in terms of family, and also families are becoming more dispersed, geographically dispersed. So you have a Brazilian family that, lived in Curitiba, for the last 2 generations, but now some of them are in Sao Paulo and a couple are in Miami, and one got married and is now living in the UK. You know, so families tend to do this now. Different family structure. Families tend to divorce and remarry more often. So there are the complexity of families is changing. So we're dealing with a different concept of family today than we did a generation or two ago. And we have to adapt our mechanisms for building unity, driving out important decisions, showing caring for one another, having important discussions about things. And so we're learning that. And in our advisory practice, we get a steady diet of different families to learn how to update our work and our thinking about how to do that. You know, it's an ongoing kind of wonderful puzzle to figure out, and when you get it right and you think, oh, this is working well, it's really satisfying. So we're dealing with new families, we're dealing with some new family issues, but we have some new tools to work with them. And take me back to the original question that you asked about this.
It's how your tip, your advice to prepare the lideration, the leads, or the family new leaders, and take this as well. Listen, you bring me some thoughts here to add to this question. Is you mentioned Brazil, no?
Yeah.
And I don't know why I have India in my mind as well, and the family's enterprise there. Do you see any cultural difference between the family business, in fact, for culture, for the countries, or the problems, the challenges are the same? And how you see Brazil family business? No?
Yeah, thank you for that. I was invited in 1999 by Nelson Suratsky of RBSA in Porto Alegre.
Yeah. He mentioned that here in the YPO, Professor John.
Oh, good.
It was great. When we interviewed him here, it was a great conversation, and he said, oh, I have the pleasure to bring the first time Professor John. That was amazing. And recently, the Guilherme Gerdau as well mentioned. That was great.
And I've had the wonderful experience of working with both the Suratskys and the Gerdaus over a long period of time. Wonderful families, great entrepreneurial families, doing really good things for the world. Anyhow, I'll just tell this little funny story. So I'm teaching in Chile, and Nelson Suratsky and his cousin Marcelo are in taking the short course I was offering at a university there. And at the end of the 3 days, I think, Nelson came up to me, and I'd gotten to know him a little bit during that. And he said, have you ever been to Brazil? And I said, no, I haven't. And this was 1999. No, I haven't. And gosh, it's on my list. He said, well, we've got this little business in the south of Brazil. Not a little business, right? And we'd love to have you visit us and come to a family meeting and talk with us about, the stuff that you're learning. Gosh, that would be great. And so they did, and I went. They invited me. I went right away. And I went to one of their family meetings in 2000 outside of Porto Alegre, and just fell in love with the family, and then started some useful work with them to get their family organized, to help them think about important decisions they were making in their business, et cetera, et cetera. And and Nelson's world-class guy and a world-class executive and leader in this area. I wrote a case actually about RBS.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
great.
At Harvard, and it was it was a very interesting case about some of the decisions that they made and how they had to regroup after some things didn't go according to plan. It was a very helpful case. And then I got to meet and work with the Gerdau family. That started my work and our work in Brazil. And pretty soon, I was working with a few families and then started inviting my colleagues to come to Brazil and join in the work. And then pretty soon, we had Eduardo Gentil join our group, and Helena McDonnell, who now lives in the UK. And we started a practice and eventually merged with another company and became a bigger practice. We have a big, innovative, wonderful practice going on now. So, and I continue to be invited to work with families on different topics here. Okay, so I've had a lot of experience here, but I've had a lot of experience in many places, right? To your question, the issues, the challenges, even some of the opportunities that business families have don't change much at all, going from country to country to country to country. That surprises a lot of people. Now, there's some differences in culture from place to place. There are some differences in national laws like taxation. That can affect decision-making, like when you pass ownership, things like that. So you always pay attention to that. But I've always said, I spent like more than a decade convinced that when I was starting out, convinced I would find big cultural differences. And I didn't. I didn't. Okay. I kept looking for them, and then eventually I said, I don't think they're here. But, you go to some countries, and there's still, it's getting less, but it's still a difference between how they treat the boys and how they treat the girls.
Okay.
Right? You go to some countries, and there's still more hierarchy in the family than there is in Brazil or the U.S. or places. But in just looking at the Americas, thinking about 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 families that I've known, the differences are very slight. Now, in Latin families do emphasize more and do a better job of keeping family members connected to and loyal to the family. That's an advantage. Latin families do a better job of getting younger family members interested in what the family does than North American families do. That's an advantage. Okay? And I would say that Brazil, but I see this in some other places in Latin America too, families have a really helpful international perspective. They're looking for the best ideas. They're looking for the best practices. They're looking for ways of expanding beyond just local models, And still in the U.S., there's this idea that U.S. families are the most international. No, it's not true. It's not true. Some are, but American families tend to be really pretty parochial in families in business. It's just that we have an enormous market.
It's the size of the market. So.
Yeah, the size of the market, and we're inventing a lot of the technology. I was telling my colleague here, Roberto Vidal, today, that, the Americans invent the technology. It's just that we don't use it. You have to come to Brazil to see the cutting edge uses of technology.
It's impressive. Brazilians, each technology is among the top 5. Even AI. Another day I was seeing a research that we are among the top 5 AI, GPT, whatever. It's impressive how we adopted really quick. But it's a wonderful lecture that we have in here. Professor John James is amazing, so we can be here hours and hours. But I'm afraid if we are going to the final question here, we're beyond the time. So, Professor John, if you could offer the family business of the world one piece of advice, or in Brazilian family business as well, for Focus Mozo in Brazil, in this turbulent period, what would be your advice?
Well, we've spent this delightful past hour or so talking about how in this turbulent world, right, you need to anticipate better and think about your options and be agile and so forth. And it starts with understanding that this is really what we're facing. This is a new world. It's not the old game. And you'll like this. Years ago, I've had a long history with YPO. Love the organization. And have been invited to give talks and conversations with chapters, national universities and international universities. And being invited to one of your international universities is such a great, wonderful kind of experience as a teacher, a lecturer, right?
Great.
And part of it is you get to go to other sessions. And I remember years ago I was at a university teaching, and I went to a session on personal security. And this was the time when in New York people were getting mugged and in the parks and things. And I thought, well, I walk a lot in parks. I love parks, and so I should probably go to this session. And there was a husband and wife team, and they were teaching about what you do if you're being held up or you're being attacked in some way. And they said, and I thought I was going to learn some fancy judo move or something, right?
Martial arts.
Martial arts. Right. No. They got very basic very quickly. And they said that I've never forgotten this. They've said, look, there are two very common mistakes that people make in these situations. One is even when it's happening, they tell themselves this can't be happening. But they feel the anxiety and they stop breathing. So their advice was, when you're in a new, especially dangerous situation, you have to say to yourself, this is happening. This is real. And you have to breathe. Because when you stop breathing, you stop thinking. And so I guess in this new, interesting, but very challenging environment, I would say to families, admit that this is happening. Treat your new reality as real. And understand it. You better understand this. And you better understand that this world is different. And breathe. Take a breath. Get oxygen flowing into your head. Think. Observe and get rational. And start to understand that we need to do some things differently. That's where I would go.
So great. It's amazing. Thank you, Professor John. It's could spend hours here for sure. A lot of questions, intriguing, think in my mind here. And for sure, the YPOers going to be watching us, will be calling Cambridge calling you, or would you like your contact to be helping a lot of family? Basically, we have a lot of families in YPO here in Brazil.
Yeah.
And business, so great advice and knowledge and teaching. Thank you very much to have you here, and I wish to be more time with you. Soon we're gonna be the second time, version 1.0, 2.0 with you the next year, yeah?
Good. I look forward to talking again. Okay. Thank you, Ventura.
Thank you very much.
Para saber mais, acesse ao portal www.exame.com/canais, -especiais, -líderes, -extraordinários.